Excellent. And do we have the meeting facilitation deck? There we go. Excellent. So welcome everybody. It's the November 3rd Audit and Finance Committee meeting. So we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. And just before we get going, just a quick notice that we are live streaming this meeting and it is now recording. It'll be live streamed on YouTube for the public and be available for viewing afterwards. Today's committee meeting is also a hybrid meeting with some members and participants located physically at the Commission's office and others participating from their respective homes and places of work for the duration of this recording. So thank you for those who have joined us today and to the members of the public watching our live stream or later the recording of this meeting. So I'd also like to go through our land acknowledgement. So on behalf of the Audit and Finance Committee, we would like to acknowledge the traditional land on which we were gathered as Treaty 6 land. We would like to thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and Blackfoot peoples. We also acknowledge this as the Métis homeland and the home of the largest concentration of the Inuit south of the 60th parallel. It's a welcoming place for all peoples who come from around the world to share the Edmonton metropolitan region as a home. With that, we have an agenda in front of us here this afternoon. I'll just go to administration quickly to make sure there's been no changes to the agenda. Mr. Jankowski?
No changes.
No changes. Excellent. Thank you very much. So with that, I will look for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Councillor Houston, would you like to make that motion?
That's my pleasure, Mr. Chair, that the November 3rd, 2022 agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you very much. We'll call the question. All those in favor, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. And that is unanimous. So that motion is carried. So moving on into the Q3 financial update. Administration, please go ahead.
So I'll start and then I'll transition it to Ms. Shea Smith. As is our normal practice, we're bringing forward a financial update, identifying or demonstrating where we are at the end of the last quarter with regards to the budgeted expenditures and also providing the committee with an outlook for the end of the year. And I'm happy to say that with the diligent work of oversight and of controlling our expenses, recognizing some of the uncertainties that continue to affect the commission and the stand-up of the commission, we continue to have a diligent hold on our purse strings, and we have been underspending to this point in this year. And Ms. Shea Smith will walk you through some of the details.
Thank you. So at the end of the third quarter of 2022, we remain on track on the delivery of our 2022 work plan and the approved operating and capital budget for this year. At the end of the quarter, the commission had a favorable variance, as you'll see on your screen, of just shy of $600,000 when compared to the budget for the same period. The largest contributor to that variance, as you can see, comes from the wages and benefits categories. The budget included 16 FTEs up to this point in 2022 in our budget. And we, at the end of the quarter, just have 10. We are focused on minimizing further financial liabilities while the ongoing uncertainty regarding the City of Edmonton's commitment continues. To minimize the potential human resource commitments, we have decided to delay the onboarding some of the incremental resources. And as you'll see in the budget presentation, some of them have actually been moved to 2023. So by the end of the year, the variance is going to decrease to just about $485,000. And that's because of the timing of the catch up of the timing of some of their professional services engagements that we still have in the forecast for the last quarter of the year. The only category that you'll see is over budget is the interest on debt. That's even though we did forecast that the interest rate would increase this year based on all of the analyst predictions from last fall, we didn't forecast that it would be such an aggressive interest rate hike. And so while that is over budget, it is offset by all of the other categories being under budget. By the end of 2022, the forecasted cumulative debt utilization is expected to be about $576,000 or $1,000, $1 million out of our total debt limit of $7 million. And if you go to the next slide, we're now able to provide an update at the end of Q2. We did promise this for Q3, and we are now able to provide an update on the 2022 capital budget because we have finalized the setup of our commission's office and our boardroom, and we have all of the invoices received and everything paid. And so the budget that the board approved for us for 2022 for capital for furniture and fixtures and then the IT equipment and computers was $250,000, and the actuals that we've spent is just about $134,000. So there's a savings there of $116,000. Most of that came because we did make some adjustments to the furniture and equipment plans. We were gifted some surplus furniture from the city of Edmonton, and so therefore that led for cost avoidance for us, which was pretty significant for this budget. And at the end of Q3, we've received all of the furniture and equipment, and we do not have any additional capital purchases planned for the remainder of 2022.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ms. Shea Smith. Any questions? Mr. Kronberg, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment about that last piece that you had just said. I think it's really commendable and should be definitely highlighted. The difference of having a budget of 150K, but only spending about 55 of it. I just wanted to say well done to the staff for finding that way to save money, and overall in the budget, very pleased to see that we'll be under budget. So well done.
If I can just comment on that, we wouldn't have achieved that without the significant contribution from the city of Edmonton. So thanks should be extended to both City Manager Andre Corbould and to Councillor Andrew Knack, because both of them were instrumental in terms of finding us surplus furniture to furnish the offices of the commission. So thank you to them. It's they were the ones that saved us this money. So thanks.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments in regards to that? So seeing no others, I did just have one question in regards to the capital dollars that were remaining. There's $115,737. Now, is that actual capital cash that is then held by the commission, or was that just simply unborrowed?
It is simply unborrowed.
Excellent. So there's no surplus being carried over or reserve to be created. Okay.
No.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So with that, if there are no other questions or comments, then I believe we would be ready for the motion, and I will look to one of the committee members for that, please. Mr. Finstead, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the Audit and Finance Committee recommend to the board the approval of the Q3 financial update at the November 17th regular board meeting.
Thank you very much for that motion. And seeing no other questions or comments in regards to that, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please use the raise hand function. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is item number 4, the revision to the debt management policy. Administration, please go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I was muted. So what we're doing today is bringing forward a suggestion that will ultimately hopefully be recommended to the board. And we've purposely arranged the agenda both today and it'll be similarly arranged at the board meeting on November 17th. Through the discussions with the board has correctly identified that with the changes in circumstance that have affected our planning for the start of operations, we're in a very different financial position than what was originally envisioned in the business case that was considered 3 and 4 years ago. We're at a point now where we are very conscious of the potential impacts in the first year of operation on the member municipalities. And as a result of that, we have brought forward as part of the budget a suggestion with regards to the debt repayment and the debt retirement timeline that was originally envisioned. In the original governance documents governing the operation of the commission, it was proposed that, and primarily within the debt management policy, it was proposed that the stand-up debt would be retired over the first 4 years of operation of the commission. That was assuming a very different operating environment and very different contributions, primarily from our biggest member municipality. As a result of that, we are proposing a more modest and a more gradual repayment and debt retirement timeline. And what we're proposing is a debt retirement timeline which reduces the yearly contributions to pay back the debt in order to minimize the impact on all of the municipal members. We are proposing a period of 7 years, and in order for the budget to be properly considered, we would have to amend the debt management policy in advance of consideration of the adoption of the budget. So we're bringing forward this item here to the committee with the recommendation that the committee, provided it sees fit, recommend this to the board. And that at the board meeting, we would consider this item prior to consideration and finalization of the budget.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Jankowski. Mr. Houston for the question.
Yeah, not a question so much as a comment. I just think the move by this Paul to extend the payback period of time does significantly reduce the impact initially in the first couple of years. And I think all of us on the board, we're looking at ways to assist member municipalities in reducing that, and really happy to see. I know we bantered around a 10-year payback and we were at 4 years. So I'm really happy to see that kind of a compromise in the 7 year. And I think that's acceptable, and really appreciate the as we call rolling with the punches to see us do this. So I'm super supportive of this and appreciate the work by administration to get this on the agenda this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Houston. Any other questions or comments from the other committee members? Seeing one, I do have one as well myself. In regards to the original debt management policy and the original term of 4 years, that was based off the data that was used in the business case for potential savings resulting in the payback period. I'm curious if we can get a little bit of context as to how the calculation of 84 months or 7 years was the determined calculation. As Councillor Houston mentioned, there was discussion of some different terms in that. I'm just wondering, from a context perspective and an information perspective, if we can get a little clarity as to maybe why 7 was the chosen amount.
So I'll start, and perhaps Ms. Shea Smith might chime in on this as well. One of the things that we sought to balance in our consideration as the administration is the need for ultimately contributions to asset replacement reserves over the initial years of operation of the commission. And we recognize that while right now we have no capital assets, we know that over the coming years we will be developing an asset management strategy. We know that we will have to work with the member municipalities to determine what an appropriate investment strategy around asset continuity and asset maintenance to continue serving the residents of our 8 member municipalities, what that will look like. We did have the option to extend the timeline even further. We were proposing, and we are proposing as administration, that we also should consider this particular element and the need to minimize or need to soften the impacts on member municipalities today with the knowledge that we will ultimately also need to start contributing over much of the same time period to the development and the creation of asset management reserves. We simply thought that extending the amount to 7 years manages the initial outlay, and you will see through the consideration of the budget that it reduced the expenditures in the first few years by approximately 30%, 40% per year. We're also conscious of the fact that there is an increased interest rate that we would be subject to right now. Those rates are continuing to increase. We chose a modest 7 years simply for in reflection of the need to extend the original timeline for 4 years, but hopefully not start to imperil our future financial planning by extending it too far into the future. So there was no significant calculation that played into it. Reducing or extending that timeline to a longer period would reduce the yearly contributions, but it would actually also increase the amount of interest that we would pay associated with the debt servicing. So Ms. Shea Smith, I don't know if you've got anything to add to that.
No, I think Paul captured it correctly. It's the balancing act between the affordability for our member municipalities and then the longer term capital planning that we need. In addition to that, Councillor Laurie, when you talk about the savings, you're correct. In our opening day plan, the savings that were originally envisioned in the business case are not there for us in the same way. However, we do still anticipate that there will be, the commission will be able to drive efficiencies, but it's probably over a longer period of time. We definitely won't see those savings on opening day, and potentially not in 2023, but that will be something that over the 5-year period we will definitely be driving, and that will help offset operating costs.
Excellent, thank you. And then the only other question that I had is in relation to the original borrowing. There was permissions required from the Minister of the Municipal Affairs and the Department of Municipal Affairs due to the way that the commission was set up and the particular debt limits as were defined and legislated. And so can we speak to, is there any additional permissions that need to be granted from Municipal Affairs in regards to the extension of the payback of this debt? Or is there going to be a transition in the securities that the commission will have in order to now have this debt actually fall appropriately within the limitations placed on us?
So, Councillor Laurie, our current ministerial order that allowed us to borrow the $7 million does expire at the end of 2023, so December of 2023. We have been having multiple discussions with Municipal Affairs about what happens when we transition from a startup to an operation, and the timing of when our debt limit then transitions from that ministerial order to us then falling under the regulation. So we still have a little bit of work to do with Municipal Affairs. We have until December of 2023, but we will be continuing on. We owe them our budget, so as soon as our budget is approved, we have to circle back to them and review our budget with them, and then discuss the next steps there.
Excellent, thank you very much. So we'll circle back and see if there are any other questions or comments from any of the other committee members. Seeing none, then I believe we would be ready for the next motion. I'll look for a committee member to make that. Mr. Gromberg, would you like to?
I sure can. I move that the Audit and Finance Committee recommend to the board the debt management policy B5.3.1 be amended to modify the repayment of startup operating costs from 4 years to 7 years.
Excellent, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I will call the question. All in favor, please use the raise hand function. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you all very much. So then moving on in our agenda to item number 5, the proposed 23 operating capital budget and 2024-25 outlook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In conformance with the direction of the board at its last meeting, what we have brought back for consideration of this committee and ultimately, hopefully, 4 recommendations of this committee to the board meeting in 2 weeks' time is the operating and capital budget that was originally tabled with the board at the last board meeting. We had a lot of good discussion, both in open session and in camera, with regards to the various funding decisions that need to take place and that the board needs to consider and make prior to finalization of the budget at that last board meeting. We did receive some direction with regards to consideration of a couple of issues that we have considered now, and you will see that consideration throughout the upcoming presentations. What we've got today in open session is largely a repeat of what was shared with the board. And just very quickly, the next 2 slides speak to both the net costs and the net cost categories. And I won't bother going through this in great detail because this has not changed from what was presented at the board and what was considered by the board, as well as on the next slide, the funding sources for the net costs. Now, when the board sees these slides in 2 weeks' time, we will also include the impact of the fare revenues that has been estimated. So both the net cost, or both the total cost, not the net cost, the total cost and the total funding will be increased by approximately $4 million, because that is the estimate of the fare and non-fare revenues that has been worked into the budget. And so you will see these 2 slides essentially be a little bit larger. Like the graphs will be a little bit larger, while the components on the expenditures graph will be the same. In terms of the funding categories, you will see one additional funding category reflecting that approximately $4 million estimate of fare and non-fare revenues. The totals remain the same as we presented to the board a couple of weeks ago. And with that, I will pause here for questions before the committee may wish to move into in-camera.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jankowski. Mr. Gronberg.
Thank you. I just have a quick question on, and maybe this, you could let me know if this maybe is better suited for in camera, but I'm just wondering if the commission is prepared, because I'm looking at some of the budgets on wages and such, and it's going to be doubling from this year to next year. And just wondering if how you as the CEO and also the commission's base of staff, are you guys ready to take on an additional doubling of staff? And also to that same kind of vein, with taking on the revenues from all of these different municipalities, are you guys ready to take on all the revenues and then allocate them appropriately thereafter?
So I'll start, and Ms. Shea Smith may jump in. Ultimately, the answer is yes. We know, however, and we've discussed with the board, and we're now engaging in discussions with the administration. We know that the opening day operating model is going to be very different than what was originally envisioned. We know that with the impacts of the consideration of, in particular, the City of Edmonton's position, there is there is some consideration of what those impacts would be on both existing municipal resources and existing municipal assets. When I say resources, municipal employees and municipal assets. So as a result of that, what I envision is that over the course of the next 4 months, 5 months, as we prepare for opening day, we will be entering into a series of one-of agreements, and the board will continuously be apprised of some of the issues and some of the decisions that need to be made with regards to those agreements. But ultimately, I suspect that many of the staff will continue to remain in their home municipalities pending a higher degree of certainty to be achieved with regards to the Edmonton position. That being said, the salaries of those staff, the salaries and the cost of those resources are baked into this budget that is being prepared. We are including all costs of all existing staff that would ultimately be dedicated towards the service and delivery of regional and local service for our 8-member municipalities, with the exception of local in the city of Edmonton. All of those costs are baked in here, and we will be working out the administrative processes to ensure that while the costs are captured here, we've got the appropriate mechanisms in place to have the municipalities continue to be the homes of those existing employees and continue to be the parties that have the direct relationship from a salary perspective and an employment perspective with those municipalities. I recognize that this isn't always going to be easy, and so we've got a lot of work ahead of us as we continue with that planning. We've included only a very modest increase in the number of direct commission staff, as has been identified through the draft budget process. But we recognize that there will be a number of resources in the member municipalities that will be dedicated to the delivery of this integrated transit. I hope that answers your question and gives you a little bit of a sense of comfort with regards to that. We know there's a lot of work to do, but we're undertaking that work now and preparing for it.
Yes, thank you. I think it does answer my question, and I think it is good to know that the municipalities' budgets for those salaries are now included or are included, just to make sure that we're seeing the full picture. I also just I'm just a little bit confused on, or maybe I didn't ask the question properly, but with the vein of the question related to the finances of revenues, is that going to come straight through to you guys and then you reallocate them? And how is that going to be set up? Because right now all of them are going to their municipalities. Are you going to bring them all into one centralized bank and then distribute them, or how is that supposed to work?
So that is one of the key questions that we'll be addressing through these service transition agreements. The reality is that all of the existing operators are already set up to collect those fares. This is, I suspect, for the initial stage, it's going to make more sense for that to remain in place with an appropriate accounting process set up to account for those fares, and ultimately to use the data that we expect to get from the implementation of the ARC card to really revise the allocation of fares as well as allocation of costs in future years amongst the municipal members. So I don't actually see in the initial days a handoff of cash, if I can put it that way. I see the appropriate mechanisms and appropriate processes being put in place to make sure that the commission accounts for the revenues on the various intermunicipal routes and is able to allocate those revenues properly to offset the members' costs for the services.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may, one more question. I just had a question about the buses though too. So we have created a brand and it's been launched of Shift Metro. Is this going to be, are we going to rebrand the buses, or on the day that they launch, are we just going to, is that going to have to become an expense of 2024? Or when is that kind of going to be included in the budgets?
So that our brand identity, which has not yet been released, it is a topic that will be subject to further discussion with our board. I think they're given where we've evolved to in terms of the service offering and how we're going to be delivering that with the modified models that we have to put in place. We will have to discuss that the branding initiative with the board further.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments before we move in camera? Ms. Shea Smith, you had a comment?
I did, thank you. Councillor Gronberg's comment when he was comparing 2022 to 2023 brought to my attention. I need to thank you, Councillor Laurie, for pointing out at the last board meeting that there was a calculation error in our 24-25 outlook. So in your package, you will see an amended 2024 to 2025 outlook, and it's in more categories than just the wages and benefits. The municipal budgets that we have consolidated to add to our commission budget is prorated for a part of 2023. And so the calculation needed to factor that in. So almost in every category, you will see an adjustment there. So we've done the math correctly. So thank you, Councillor Laurie, for picking it out. And now we have time to have it corrected. And so when it gets back to the board on November 17th, the correct version will be there for the board to approve.
Thank you very much. It's good to see. So with that then, seeing no other questions or comments, I will look for a committee member to make a motion to move in camera for the remainder of the discussion. Councillor Houston, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll move that the Audit and Finance Committee move in camera in accordance with the provisions of the Division 2 exceptions to disclosure of the Freedom of Information, Privacy and Protection and Privacy Act, VoIP, RSA 2000 CF 25 as per section 16 through 28.
Thank you very much. And we'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. And that is carried unanimously. So we will just wait for a moment here until administration gets us in camera, and then we will resume our meeting. Excellent. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. So we have moved out of camera now and we are back into our meeting. And so I'm just moving forward here. It looks like we do have the proposed motion, if I can get that up on the screen. So I think it's on slide 20. Oh, do we need to do this one first, Paul? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, it would probably be good to move both of the motions.
Okay, sounds good. So I will look for a motion for the Audit and Finance Committee to accept the information presented in camera. Mr. Finstead, could I get you to make that motion? You're muted.
I move the Audit and Finance Committee accept the information as presented in camera.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Finstead. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. And then we will move on to our next motion. Motion resulting from the discussions in camera. And if I can get somebody to move that motion, please. Councillor Houston, would you like to move that one?
Sure, be my pleasure. Just going to reduce my thumbnail here so I can read this better. Okay, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure that I'd like to move that the Audit and Finance Committee recommend the board approve. Number one, the proposed 2023 operating and capital budget and the 2024 to 2025 outlook as presented in the budget. Number two, the levies payable by each member municipality be approved as presented as reflected in the proposed 2023 operating and capital budget, including the timing of the requisition to be issued. And number three, the interest payable on the late payment of 2023 levies be set at 7.5% of the amount of the levy payable by the member as at the November 17th, 2022 board meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Houston, Councillor Houston. Is there any opening comments you'd like to have on that?
I'd just like to, say to the committee, Mr. Chair, with your leadership and with the staff, the amount of work that's gone back and forth to member municipalities. It's been a lot of heavy lifting, and I'm really happy to see us at a point where this is going to be, coming to the board. There's more discussion for sure, but really excited about the fact that we are getting close to bringing this new service to fruition. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I would agree with those statements. Any other questions or comments from any of the other committee members? Seeing none. Oh, we just lost Councillor Houston for a second here, so we'll just have to wait for him. There he is. Okay, so seeing no others, then I will call to question. All those in favor, please raise hand. Excellent, and that is carried unanimously. So that brings us to the end of our agenda this afternoon. So I'd like to say thank you very much to both the committee members and the members of our administration for all of the hard work that has gone in to both the budget, the operation plans, and so on. So there's been a lot of heavy lifting, as Councillor Houston said, and I'm excited to be at the point where this is going to be in front of the board for the final approval on November 17th. Lots of great discussion that have gone into that. Any other comments from administration before we adjourn? Excellent. Seeing none.
No, sir. Thank you.
Perfect. Seeing none, I will call us adjourned this afternoon at 4:29. Thank you all for your time today. Take care.
Thank you.
See you all later.